All right. Thanks for jumping on and doing this with me, Andrew. Um,
Absolutely.
let's just start off with who you are and what you do.
All right. Yeah, my name's Andrew. I have a family-owned home service company in California. We have 23-ish employees, do about 6 million in revenue. And my brother and I now, we're second generation running it together.
Awesome. Um, and how did we first get connected? I think it was
We got
through the BTA podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard you on the BTA podcast, and you were talking about how sometimes life asks you to just run a marathon out of like today, and what that feels like. And I was like, oh, I should talk to this guy. That's what my life feels like all the time.
Yeah. What what spoke to you the most from that podcast? What really stuck out?
That idea of like, you'll kind of be like chugging along, and then all of a sudden you just have to red line, and you're just not equipped for it. Right? Like I didn't have tools to be able to do that, how to bring myself back down, how to kind of like rebuild the engine afterwards or something along those lines. That idea of just like that fire that just destroys essentially everything in your life. And like you were talking about all the tools that you work with people and how to be able to combat that and be more prepared for it also, right? Like increase what it means to redline.
And what, like, in your business, in your role, what does redlining mean, or like what did that look like for you?
Um, it could come in a lot of ways. Sometimes it could be like a, not literal, but like what we all call a fire, something that all of a sudden becomes urgent and important and just takes over your day. And you just have to start dealing with it. But also some of it would just come from like anxiety or like just this feeling that, I had so much overwhelm and other things like that. And then that would kind of redline me and it would just raise my stress level in whichever way that was. It would just raise my stress level to a place where I like became ineffective, right? Like obviously if you redline your car for too long, it's going to blow up. And that was kind of what was happening to me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was kind of recalling, like, when we first, because we've been working together for a while now, like what,
Yeah.
when you first started with the mental fitness stuff, and we'll distinguish in a minute, like what the difference for you was between mental fitness and some of the coaching. But burnout was kind of present, if I remember correctly, like overwhelm. Um, what were some of the challenges you were facing in the business if somebody was trying to relate to what you were up against?
Um, yeah. It's a little almost hard to think back like what it was before because we've done a lot together. But I definitely came here from like a very personal like aspect. Even though like a lot of my stuff was business related, we connected through the business. It was about like how my life was interacting with the business and how I myself am interacting in the business. And so, having problems with like major anxiety around the business, like not being able to turn off when I went home. Basically just feeling like I was at work all the time, even when I wasn't. Um, when I was at work, not feeling productive because I was so worried about everything else. So essentially just wasting all of my time worrying about work and never, doing work, whether again, that was in the office or at home. Um, Obviously a lot of anxiety related issues. But then also just like, how to actually have like plans going forward with those. That was like another thing. It's like I just felt like stuck sometimes, which would lead to that like overwhelming kind of like hopeless feeling. And those were coming from like employee issues, like we were just having a hard time like staffing appropriately. We're, obviously the typical things that come from running a family business that hasn't been structured the way that some of these other businesses are, like, learning like what, things that needed to be implemented and just finding ways to do that. Not that we necessarily worked on the specifics of that, but like having the emotional tools to then be more productive and get those things done.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking through some of the stuff we've worked on. It's because you work with other coaches.
Yes.
And I'd love to actually distinguish like what that's been like. So you're working with some different types of business coaches, you're working with me. How do I fit into the mix, and what's been most helpful with working with me?
Yeah. I would say like the biggest distinction is like you're my coach, right? So the other coaches that we have are two business specific coaches and some like subcategories of the businesses too. But like when I think about coming into this section or session, while I do think about like it doing things that it's going to help advance the business, and that was a huge part of what we did at first, especially was I mean, we talked about the business, I feel like, more than anything else in the very beginning. But that was because my identity was completely revolving around the business, which we've also worked on. But it was like we were here to work on me to make me better for my business.
Mm.
So as opposed to like my other coaches, it's like, all right, today we're going to talk about how to incentivize your team or whatever. And you know, those sorts of things. Like this is really like Andrew becoming like an A player for his business so that he can, you know, help drive it the way that he wants to.
Awesome. What did you have any hesitations before we started working together?
I honestly feel like I came to it and I had like already drank the Kool-Aid and I hadn't met you, just being fully honest. But that's also, I think, partially because I had done a bit of therapy before and I had gotten really comfortable with like talking to people. And I also related to you really well through the podcast. So I might be the wrong person to talk about that because I was pretty comfortable. But
Mm-hmm.
I also think like that your personality, one, like made me feel really comfortable being vulnerable. And I think that helped us just like kickstart everything way faster because I feel like we just got right into it. Like there wasn't a lot of like warm up with us.
No, no. Yeah, you jumped straight in. Yeah. It was awesome. It's so good. Um, and we started with the mental fitness,
Yes.
which is different from coaching, but also connected. Um, for somebody listening and they're like, okay, what is mental fitness? What is coaching? By the way, like that, I'll have resources if anybody does actually listen to this where I can tell them that stuff. So we won't go into like the finer details. Um, but what did doing mental fitness do for you first? And
Okay.
then moving into coaching.
Yeah. It did a couple things. So like first was it started raising the red line and then started like increasing my ability to bring it back as well, right? So to like to throttle down. So that was like the instant, like just by starting doing the PQ, like that just like almost like instantly started happening with the practice. Like within the first week, I could say I started feeling results from that, right? So
And
like
and when you say you're talking about red line, you're feeling results, what does it actually mean?
yeah, so I mean, and you know, obviously in the PQ they talk about like your sage and your saboteur and like raising your sage power so that your saboteurs can't hijack you as much. But that means like when I would start feeling anxiety from one of my saboteurs trying to take over, like one, I had more capacity to like handle it, so it didn't hijack me, take over my personality, let's say, as fast. But also when it did, I was more prepared to, hey, buddy, come back over here. Let's start talking again. So it from both sides, which is what I really like about PQ, is it kind of attacks it both ways. It makes you stronger and it makes you better at seeing it and recognizing it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, what I'm hearing there is like awareness around um how you were getting in your own way or getting overwhelmed or frustrated, like just anytime you were getting in your own way, and how to recenter, get grounded again, get refocused faster and recover faster.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like the kind of like immediate results that I started feeling. Like I said, like honestly within the first week, and then obviously the weeks continue to evolve, and you know you get more in depth. The other thing I would say that was huge from it is starting to like recognize and reflect on yourself, and learning that like a lot of your weaknesses come from strengths, but how do you focus on those being strengths and avoid letting that weakness part of it come through. It's not always fun to like look in the mirror and have to evaluate yourself, but it's probably the most crucial like self growth that you could do. Is like really understanding yourself.
Yeah.
So that definitely came like in kind of like the later weeks. And then the third biggest thing I would say that came from PQ is like we now have a language to communicate with. And I think that has been really crucial for us to be able to work together so well because you can say something to me, I know exactly what you mean, and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. I found it really speeds up getting clients unstuck because we have a language for what's happening. We can see the stuck part happening and kind of just move past it faster.
Yeah.
And um Yeah, any other kind of results or wins that came out of doing mental fitness? We're using PQ as it interchangeably with mental fitness. But any other things that you've noticed in terms of like the impacts that's had on you, your life, your business?
Yeah. One of my coworkers, she was going through a really rough time. We actually would do PQ reps together. So I know it's a really simple thing, but she was struggling, and we would just sit and do a gym session together. And again, maybe not the biggest thing in the world, but it made a big impact for her. So I loved that. For me, I was using it in my relationship. I would use some of the tools that we learned together to handle certain situations that would come up. I definitely noticed my ability to navigate those changed quite a bit. I wasn't so snappy, so like on and off. I was able to kind of like surge with the situation a lot better. Um, it's kind of hard. It's almost hard to think about before because it's like we've been doing it so long.
Yeah.
But it just really helped me like honestly become more comfortable. And I know it's really general, but like I am just more comfortable like navigating life now. I don't walk through every day like worrying about everything that's gonna happen. I just take things as they come. I try to stay more focused on the goals that I'm working on, and then I keep going from there. And obviously, we're still working on it. And I'm far from perfect, but the level of anxiety that I have in life has just, I mean, I can't even put a number on it, but it's dropped a ton.
That's super cool, man. That fills my cup to hear that. Um, and what's changed or what's different between the coaching? So we shifted from mental fitness. We started doing some one-on-one coaching weekly. What have you gotten out of that? What's been the value for you in those coaching sessions?
I think of our coaching sessions kind of like the laboratory. It's like we go in together and we kind of have a little bit of an idea, but then we cook up an experiment and then we do it, right? And I really like that method too, because one, we can be super relevant. Like if something incredibly pressing is going on, we don't have to stick to like a firm plan. We're always like kind of on a path, but like we might take a little side trip. And so I love that part. But then also when there's not like maybe a really urgent thing, we keep moving down this path that I've been wanting to work on. But it's hard to put into words because we kind of go wherever we need to go. And I think that's what makes you more effective than anything else I've done. Like I mentioned, obviously, I've done a fair amount of therapy and other type of coaching and stuff like that. And sometimes I feel like they want to get me into the box that they're comfortable playing in and then help me solve the problem using like the tools that they know. And I feel like your tools work wherever I want to put the box, right? So whatever thing I want to highlight, you're ready to go. And that probably has to be a little scary for you sometimes because you don't know what I'm going to come in and say. But I would say like I've never had something that I was like scared to come in and talk to you about or tell you or whatever. And I think that's also made a huge difference in the progress because previously I've been in other stuff, specifically like therapy. It's like, oh, I'm a little afraid to bring this up. Not that I think they're going to judge me, but like, I don't know where we're going to go with this. Are they really going to help me with this or whatever? And I'm just confident that we're going to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, it like our like sessions, it's really focused on what I need to work on. And so we do even some really basic checklist things of like making sure that I'm being healthy and doing, the habits that I need to do and things like that have made a huge difference. It's kind of like the basics of life basically, but we're just making sure that they're good and consistent because you can't build on a bad foundation. And then sometimes we're exploring. I mean,
Do you
I
have
remember.
do you have a specific example of just to ground that in reality for somebody? It's like, oh, we're talking about some basic foundational things and it's had a big impact. Like what's an example of that?
Well, I'll embarrass myself and talk about the fact that we went through my email together. Right. So like I was having a big issue around like getting through my email productively and like leaving too many things pending and not closing it out and therefore entering my email with anxiety. So anyone who's feeling that, probably a lot of people, like Fife and I literally spent, I don't know, 15-20 minutes in my email. And Fife was like, why is that in here? And I'm like, I don't have a good answer for that. And he's like, all right, so we're gonna either oh shoot, now I'm at the test. We're either gonna delete, defer, delegate, or do it, right? And then we just went through and I halved the amount of emails I had, and I'm going to continue to half it until I'm down to zero. So I mean, as basic as that, as basic as sleep, as basic as fitness, diet, and not that like we're making meal plans together, even though you probably would if I asked you to, but more just talking about like, hey, what are your goals around this? Okay, my goals around fitness, for example, are right now to train just 2 classes a week, and I'm doing that. We're checking in on that, making sure that we have a plan around how to do that, that I have a clear vision why I'm doing that. Even though it's so basic, it's that stuff makes a big difference and allows you to hit those bigger goals.
Yeah, that was a good insight for me. And I think that came out of today's session was just talking about how the habit that you started with working out with your jujitsu, the ripple effect that that's had in all these other areas that were a bit of a struggle, like sleep, focus, some of these other things. And I kind of forget that sometimes for myself, because I'll lose a habit because I just get overworked with something. And then when I come back to it, I'm like, oh man, that was impacting my nutrition, which was impacting how well my energy was throughout the day, which was impacting my focus. So it's just a good reminder for me and for when I'm talking with other clients. It's like, what is that keystone habit that could make a huge compounding difference in all these different other arenas? Because a lot of people will come in and be like, I need just to be more productive. And like, okay, we can talk about being productivity hacks, but it's like, are you exercising? Like if we did that one thing, that might help all these other areas too. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this was definitely on me of like I kind of kept circling around a bunch of these different things, and I do enjoy that we tested and then it wasn't working, so then we would tweak and test and tweak and test and tweak, and now we've gotten to a pretty good spot. And yeah, I think I came in swinging for the fences. I don't know if you kind of remember some of those early sessions, but like, and I did appreciate it because solving or not solving, I shouldn't say that, like discussing some of those bigger topics brought down some anxiety around them. And so I think it was very good to get them out of the way. But like we haven't gotten back to some of these bigger 5-year kind of plans for a little bit, like maybe the last month and a half or so. We've really been focused on more like relative like right now type things. Because we were able to discuss those and take some of the fear away from them. And so now we're focusing here so that we can get back to that with a lot more strength. It's really hard for me to tell you in 5 years I want to do XYZ thing, have my 3-story glass building, when I can't get up in the morning and go to work because I'm too tired because I couldn't fall asleep because I had too much anxiety. So I love that we were able to take it from, I mean, that's about as big of a scale as like I could probably think on, to now like talking about what time I go to bed, what time I get up, how many times a week I'm working out, and then how that's actually having a much bigger effect.
yeah, awesome. Um, what else have you noticed in terms of some of the results that you've gotten from working together?
Um, I I'm a lot more calm, like just internally. And again, I keep bringing up anxiety. Obviously, that's like one of my big things. Um, but I just feel a lot more comfortable going into different situations. Like my whole life overall is calm. Anytime I have something that's breaking that, we talk about it pretty much, and then we can work on things that will help fix that. So I really enjoyed that. I have some separation between work and personal life now. Like there's actually time that is for me. And I will also say, just for anyone, is remembering that and actually thinking about it and not just remembering the past is really crucial too. So like we talk about it and you actually like kind of call me out sometimes on things, and like I'm like, oh, actually, I did have this amount of time or whatever too, or we plan for it, so that I recognize that I have it, or these other things where like I just feel like sometimes people get stuck in the bad idea and they don't realize that they've actually made some progress. So like kind of checking in on that has been awesome. I think my relationships have improved at work too. I come in like I've actually had people tell me like, oh, you look happier in the morning. And it wasn't that I was personally feeling unhappy when I came in, but I was very serious because I knew like it was like I was going to war that day, right? Like I was coming in and I had this mountain of stuff that I was very, scared about getting done, and I never thought I was going to get it done. So it was like coming in and I just had to be on a mission. And now I can come in and actually be human. And I mean, it was very weird to have someone say that to me, and it was kind of an eye opener. But it's obviously something that changed. Um, there's so many little things, like so many small habits have changed as well. But on the bigger picture, like I just feel like I'm enjoying life a lot more.
Love it, man. Um, what are you excited about moving forward? Like what's possible now that you've done some of this work? What's opening up for you?
Um, I'm really excited about like kind of clearing the backlog. Um, I'm probably not quite ready to like start talking like big picture future again. Like we talked about like we've done that a little bit. I'm really enjoying working in this like right now zone that we're in, um, because I've never felt, how do I say that? Like I'm feeling more confident in being able to accomplish goals that I have no idea what they are than like when I used to sit and think about what those goals had to be. And that's because like we're building like a better race car right now. Right. So like right now we're like doing all the prep work and everything like that. And we're just building like generally a better machine. Um, and I can't think about like fine tuning, this one little detail when I don't have like a machine to fine tune it on. And so for me, like I'm very focused on this near future. And when I say that, I mean probably the next 6 months, to be fair. Like, we could probably work on like these really near things. But once we clear that whole backlog, like I don't know what's going to be possible, but I think it's going to be pretty awesome. Um, and I love how we sprinkle in some of these like values. That's like obviously another big thing that we did in the beginning. We talked a lot about like values and just some certain key big ideas. So we always have that to like sprinkle in when those topics come up, but we don't have to rabbit hole all the way down to like deciding like, what my address is going to be in 5 years. And I really like that part too, and not getting caught up in the minutia of the future.
Yeah. If anybody's, well, anything else that you'd want to share about our experience together, takeaways, just in general?
Um, I mean, like I've said, I this is the most impactful thing that I've done for myself. Like I've worked with many other people in different, capacities or whatever. The closest thing that I could relate this to was a professor, from when I was in school, that I got to work with very specifically around like a project. Like she advanced me in that, field, kind of like the same way you're advancing me in life. And like it was that very like close relationship where we could just talk about things, discuss, explore, kind of like nothing was off limits in that sense. And it really drove me forward. And I feel like that's what we're doing here too. Um, it's there's kind of like no rules. And I feel like there's a lot of rules around like other treatments, right? Or other, and I don't mean treatments and like to feel like something's wrong, but it's like when I'm feeling anxiety, obviously I need to do something to fix it. And like working with other people, it's very much so like just do these things. But like with you, there's a lot different connection to it because you are willing to go wherever I need to go to get back to the point. And I can tend to sometimes take a very long roundabout path to get there, and you'll stick with me the whole hour. And then eventually we get there, and then it means a lot more to me than you trying to like just force me to where you think I need to go.
I've had a lot of fun in our sessions. Yeah. It's you bring a fun energy, and yeah, for somebody that is listening, every session's very different. How I work with Andrew is different than how I work with other clients. Um, but I think that is something that I like to bring to the table is I don't have all the answers. I'm not going to tell you what to do. My goal is just to be a bit of a guide and like help point people in the right direction, ask the right questions, things like that. And people usually get to where they need to go.
Yeah.
So
You take the idea of being a coach very seriously, in my opinion, too. It can be quite frustrating when I want you to give me the answer. So anyone who starts working with you, like just accept that and like realize that he's making you better. Because sometimes I really just want you to tell me what you think, and then you'll like, nope, I'm gonna ask you another question, and then we'll get there together. But that is what makes it stronger. Like I said, like in therapy, I just feel like, man, they had this like almost like they had already decided what I needed to do. So then they would kind of like coach me into that hole. But like, I feel like sometimes you'll coach me into a place where you probably know I'm not going to succeed, and then let me figure that out, and then I'll come back and then we'll regroup. I don't know if you've done that or not, but sometimes I'm like, man, I came up with kind of a bad idea, but like I came up with it, I lived it, I come back, we fix it, and now it's good. And like I think that's important too, to like let people kind of experience it and not like, tell me what to do, because it's not going to have the same value to me, right? It's like going back to like a child, right? Like if you give a child a cell phone, they're not going to respect it. If you make them work for it and buy it themselves, they're probably going to respect it a lot more. So and yeah, I don't know, I can't say enough about like what we've done together. It's the best thing I've done for myself.
Thanks, man. Is there anybody that you'd recommend it for specifically? Just like the style of working together, the value that you've got?
I think anyone who's on a path that doesn't have a very defined like nature to it. So us as business owners, people who even in their personal lives want to accomplish something that's maybe not traditional. Maybe, people who feel stuck in life. I mean, I couldn't imagine someone that honestly couldn't. Uh, Someone with no ambition, no goals, like no like desire to do anything in life, like they shouldn't work with you. But other than that, like yeah, Fife would be awesome for you, because like I said, especially as a business owner, like even though I have my brother and I are pretty different, and so sometimes we have a hard time relating. So like you're kind of like that thing that can help me like reconnect, right? Like, and you help me reconnect through myself. And so that's pretty awesome. But again, like someone who, if someone wants to become a, I don't know, a famous musician or something like that, I'm sure they could benefit from working with you too, because that's a very tough path to be on by yourself. And if you don't have people that believe in you or people to support you or mentor you or whatever, and even if you do, like there's going to be a lot of hard times along that journey that exploring with you would be awesome as far as the coaching. PQ, I think like literally anybody, like that's been amazing. And I think if the whole world did PQ, that'd be really awesome for all of us too. But that's a different topic, maybe.
We're getting there. We're chipping away. We're getting more and more people going through that. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you doing this with me. It's been a ton of fun working together, and I'm super excited for what's to come as well.
Absolutely, Fife. Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.